Dames en heren, welkom bij een nieuwe Cryptotakkies. Ik ben Raoul Essenboom en ik ben hier vandaag met Tey, de Invisible Man. We gaan dit interview wel weer doen in het Engels. Maar ik ga gewoon alles vertalen. Als het goed is, zie je dat dan hier onderin het beeldscherm. Dus we gaan starten. Tey, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Raoul, for having me on this session.
Yeah, of
but
course.
I do appreciate it that it's in English as well.
Yeah, of course. I wanted to make sure that my guests can fully explain their story. And if it's in English, then it's in English. And if it's in Dutch, it's in Dutch. Maybe if you did it in Arabic, I would try to learn Arabic as well, so I can help you in that way. But no, man.
I'm taking private Dutch courses so that I can improve my Dutch language.
Well,
hopefully by end of the year we can perhaps make a 2020 wrap up in Dutch.
Yeah, man, because you told me that you know the ADO Den Haag theme song, right?
Yeah, of course. I'm a big fan of ADO Den Haag. I used to, and I still cheer for them. Every Sunday you find me on the stadium singing "Oh Den Haag."
Okay, cool, man. It's great that you're a soccer fan because I used to play as well. So that's the first thing. But can you please tell me about your story? Because most of the people that do know you, they know you as the Invisible Man. But that name, it has a whole story around it. So, yeah, start.
True. The name has a story because I was never the Invisible Man. I was a regular, as I do call it, a Dutch person. I don't carry the Dutch passport. I don't have the Dutch nationality, but I do have the Dutch identity. And the Dutch identity means I do enjoy beer. I do visit coffee shops. I do eat haring. I do cheer for ADO Den Haag. I do watch goede tijden, slechte tijden. So I do everything that the Dutch person usually does. I do ride a bicycle. So I did all these Dutch-related cultural things that define a person with his Dutch identity. But unfortunately, this experience had to end in 2014. So I came to the Netherlands in 2010 as what we call a kennis immigrant or a knowledge worker. I was hired to introduce some new software trainings for the healthcare sector in the Netherlands, specifically a CRM system called Siebel. So one of the big Dutch healthcare companies hired me to teach and to train their staff on a software called Siebel. So that event taught me a lot of things about the Netherlands. I learned how to complain about the weather. I learned how to complain about the taxes. I got myself a dog, and I did all the things that I mentioned previously, what a Dutch person usually does. But that experience ended in 2014 when my work contract as a kennis immigrant was not renewed. What does this mean? This means the reason I came to the Netherlands is no longer valid according to the immigration laws of this country, and I had to leave. Now, when I say I had to leave, that doesn't mean I go back to Dubai, where I come from. I cannot go back to Lebanon, where I was raised and where I went to university and school and where I grew up, where my family is, where my friends are. And I cannot go back to Syria, where my passport and nationality is. So that being said, 2014 is the climax of the Syrian civil war, which is continuing 10 years later today. And the only chance for me to not go back to Syria, not go back to a war zone. And in fact, in 2014, the airports of Syria were closed. It was a no-fly zone. So there is no plane that could carry me back to Syria. And as a Syrian, if you want to go back to Dubai, if you want to go back to Lebanon, you need to have a valid permit visa, which those countries did not issue for Syrians because there was war in their hometowns. So the only option in front of me was to apply for asylum. The asylum doors in the Netherlands were open, and I thought, well, and this was what also my lawyer thought, that because I lived in the Netherlands, because I do have a BSN number that was issued in 2010, because I am registered in the municipality of The Hague, because I have an insurance, because I have a driving license, the immigration or the asylum process will not take long to get approved, basically. And since there was a lot of asylum seekers coming to apply for a refugee status in the Netherlands, we thought it would take maximum of 3 months because there's a lot of people. Well, in fact, I ended up 2 years in a Dutch refugee center, and not one. I moved between 5 different locations. So it started with Ter Apel, then I moved to Zwolle, then I moved to Gilserain, then I moved to Zeist in Utrecht. And of course, in every camp, there is a different story, there is a different lesson learned, but the commonality between all these camps and all these experiences is that I am no longer a person that is visible to the world. I had to give back my BSN number. I had to give back my Syrian valid passport at that time. I had to give back my valid verblijfsvergunning or Dutch residency, because my residency expired in 12 December 2014, where I applied for asylum in September 2014. So my Dutch residency still had 3 months validity on it, and I had to basically hand it in. So now I am without documents, I'm without an identity, I cannot open a bank account, I cannot have a healthcare insurance, I cannot even go to school, I cannot go to university, I can do basically nothing. And that experience today, where you don't have an identity, where you don't have papers, legal documents that say who you are, then is multiplied by 1.2 billion people around the world. And this is when I say I was blessed to live that experience, because I realized what I had on my hand is my basically clothes, is my smartphone, is my internet connection, and my Bitcoin wallet. And those 3 things, the smartphone, the internet, and the Bitcoin wallet, basically changed my whole vision, mentality, my purpose, and a new man was born, and that man is the invisible man. I'm sorry I took a little bit time to explain this, but I want everyone to understand the place that I started from, this refugee camp, this place that was previously perhaps a prison or a football stadium or something that you cannot even expect in your worst dreams to live in. And once you are in that situation, what are you going to do? What's your next step? And my next step, and I think this is the message that I'm always trying to deliver as the invisible man, is to look at what do you have in your hands right now and start from there.
Yeah, it puts everything in perspective. And
yes.
One of the things that I am trying to teach is what you just told as well, is that there are 1.2 billion people that cannot be a part of the digital financial infrastructure.
True.
But you solved that problem, and you solved that problem with software, with Bitcoin. Can you please tell how you came up to Bitcoin? How did Bitcoin came into your life?
Let's again here I will divide my answer into two parts: before the invisible man and after the invisible man. Before the invisible man, the touch point in Bitcoin started in 2013. Part of my job as a software trainer on CRM systems means that I go learn about new software. So basically a company would hire me and send me to another software company. I would learn about that product, and I would come to the company that hired me, to my employer, and I will teach them about what I've learned. And we're talking about like teaching 500 or 1,000 employees about what I've learned. During that line of work, I came in touch with many software developers and many software engineers, where one of them was my neighbor in The Hague. He's a computer scientist. He's 21 years old at that time. And he was explaining to me about this new thing that he came across to, something called the Bitcoin. And
this was when?
This was 2013. This was beginning 2013. And the conversation started by me telling him, his name was Tom. I said, hey, Tom, in our company, we are renewing all the laptops and we are renewing all the softwares there. So the company is looking to give away these laptops. Do you know where I can donate them, or do you know what I can do with them? He said, well, if we can have them, then I want to show you how we can make money out of these laptops, and how can we mine cryptocurrencies on them. And this was like the moment when he said, how can we mine Bitcoin on them? I was like, oh, what are you talking about? So he started explaining to me how this things work. And to be honest, I didn't believe that this could work. I didn't believe that this is something that's gonna pick up, simply because I did not understand what is money, and I did not learn about money good enough in school, although I graduated from university with a degree in business management with a focus on economics. So I had like a double major in university, business management and business economics. And imagine like going out from as a university student, you still do not have the deep knowledge about what is money. So I went on a self-learning path, or a curve, and this is when my brains and my mentality about what is Bitcoin started to change. I was purely interested in making money, purely interested in hustling, as they say. We started mining. I remember driving to Belgium every weekend to Ghent to change the Bitcoins I had into cash money. And I come back to the Hague like with staples of 50 euros. These were the evinced of, or the profits that we were making from mining Bitcoin. We had to pay the electricity bills. So we were changing the coins and paying the bills, and there was a little bit left over. Basically, at that time, there was good money left over because we were living in a student house. I was living in a student house. So my rent was all inclusive. But, every now and then the landlord comes and says, hey, you're using a lot of electricity, you have to pay extra. But whatever we had to pay extra was not compared to what we were making. The mistake that I did at that time is I didn't believe in that technology. And I used to change all the coins that I'm making into euros. I believed more in the euros than in Bitcoin. And of course, you're in your early 20s. Rotterdam is like a few kilometers away from your house, and you go party every Saturday and you're spending the money that you have. So this went on and on and on. until I started importing mining machines from China, from Bitmain. So I was one of the early customers of Bitmain in the Netherlands. I imported the S1 mining machines. I was a reseller of these machines. And at that time, the value of that machine was not known to the tax office yet. So the what we call the invoerrecht, or the import tax that you were paying, was very, very low, because simply it was just chips. It was just, you know, very small pieces of hardware. And I was putting all these pieces of hardware at my own home, and then selling a complete set. So I just ordered the PCB boards, and I, together with a friend of mine, we designed a plug and play mining machine. So people would buy a machine that they would plug in the internet, plug in the electricity, switch on a button, and then this machine is mining Bitcoins for them and giving it onto their wallets. And at that time, every block was giving 25 Bitcoins. So every 10 minutes, the reward for the Bitcoin mining operation was around 25 Bitcoins. Of course, the whole machine doesn't give you 25 Bitcoins for yourself, but the reward was big enough to make these machines profitable. Especially in winter, where people like switched off their gas heating, and they just relied on the heating of these machines. I had a one-bedroom apartment, and I was sleeping in a mining farm inside my house that was around 15 terahashes. When one machine was 185 GHS per second, my farm was around 13 terahashes per second. And I have pictures on that on Facebook. The sound was horrible, the heat was horrible, but I love the money that it made. To end that story, two incidents happened that eventually led me to close down my first experience as an entrepreneur in the Netherlands. The first one was as they say in Dutch, an inval by the police. So the neighbors called the police on me. They were disturbed by the sound. And second of all, they thought that I am doing a wheat farm at my own house.
Because of all the heat.
Yeah, from the heat and from the sound. So basically on my balcony in 2000, and I think towards the end of 2013, in the winter of 2014, it was snowing heavily in the Netherlands. And you could see on my balcony and on my roof, there is absolutely no snow. And there is like dents on my windows. There is water dripping from my windows. I do remember it was a Friday afternoon. I always used to hear cars driving under my house, but at that afternoon, the street was very quiet, simply because the police had shut the street from the beginning to the end. My beard was even longer than this. I was a little bit more tanned. I was playing kickboxing every day, so I was a little bit muscled up. And it was a total opmerking that this guy is a weed grower. They came into the house with masks. First time I see heavy weapons in the Netherlands that I used to see in Lebanon, held by the police. And they broke into the house, and they were surprised to see this. It was a mining farm and not a wheat farm. I explained to the police that, you know, I'm not hacking the central bank. I'm not doing something illegal. This is a Bitcoin mining operation. The electricity is paid. These are the invoices from DHL that I got these legally into the Netherlands. And this is just a simple misunderstanding. I do remember until today what this guy told me. He said, the policeman, we received a tip anonymous that there was weapons and drugs in the house. So yeah, this was the first experience that I said, okay, I have to rethink my strategy of selling these mining machines in the Netherlands, and eventually I wanted to sell them in Dubai as well. And then the second hard club came in September 2014, when I had to apply for asylum. So basically I couldn't run the business anymore. So this was previous to the Invisible Man time. During the Invisible Man time, I went to the camp with a few Bitcoins on my wallet. Bitcoin prices at that time was between $400 to $600. I had my smartphone on me. The food in the camp was, on the first days, it was like super, because you're really hungry, you want to eat. But days after that, when you're eating the same food every single day, it becomes irritating. And from my previous experience, I used to order from Thuisbezorgd.nl pizza, because they were accepting Bitcoin at that time.
Yeah.
And I ordered a large pepperoni pizza to the camp. And this was like chaos. This was a moment that changed my status in the camp. I became the president, the king of this refugee camp, because there is a guy who is able to bring food, who's able to bring cigarettes, who's able to bring beer, cola, wine, and things that you cannot find in the camp. And this is similar to a prison. If someone is in a prison and he has the capability of selling cigarettes inside, then he becomes the president of the prison. So I had Bitcoins on me. I was ordering food from Thuisbezorgd.nl, and this was a glorious moment. Not that refugees don't have money to do that. Some of them had cash in their pockets, and they were capable of buying what they want. But the fact that you do not have an identity, the fact that you do not have an ideal payment gateway, that you do not have a PayPal, that means you cannot order stuff online and pay upfront for it. When you are ordering a pizza from any store and you want it delivered to a refugee camp, you have to pay upfront for that product. Especially in an area like Ter Apel, where it is basically the end of the world for us. And Bitcoin gave us that potential to have our own money on our own smartphones, that no one can confiscate from us, that no one would ask for an identity to use. Nobody would ask you for your passport, for your first name, for your last name, for your religion, for your ethnicity, for your address. No information at all. You just download this application and you are now included in an economy that is worth billions of dollars.
And exactly that, you have different use cases that Bitcoin made possible. So one of the use cases that you discussed is identity, but the other one is like being a part of the financial infrastructure.
Yes.
And especially for people that don't have a stable currency. You posted something about the Syrian currency that is, it's not pegged to the dollar, but you posted something about the currency. Can you please explain how Bitcoin has a function in lands where the currency isn't stable?
True. So what we have seen as well lately is many, Bitcoin activists, evangelists, and basically Bitcoin users promoting the trading aspect of Bitcoin and telling people, yeah, you can get rich with this. If you buy today, the price would go to $50,000. The price is going to $100,000. So the major conversations today in Bitcoin are price related and trade related. But what we see in that is, yes, some of these routes you can explore and you can take if you have experience in basically trading. And we're talking specifically about Forex trading. But what it is important for us to look at is the time that Bitcoin was introduced in 2008 at the heart of a big financial meltdown and a big financial crisis. and we look back in history and see when was internet introduced. It was introduced in 1974. That means it's 1 year later after the Nixon shock, which again is a moment in history that was basically changing the face of financial industries around the world. In the Nixon shock, the dollar was no longer pegged to the gold, and it became the fiat standard currency. That means it's backed by nothing. This created a worldwide economic shock. And to give perspective to the Dutch listeners, we said, and it was widely circulated, that the Prime Minister of the Netherlands never addressed the public like when he did in 2020 in the Corona times. The first time that was an address by the Prime Minister to the Dutch public was between 1973 and 1974, when there was the oil crisis, when Saudi Arabia claimed to stop selling oil for US dollar. It affected the Dutch people, and this is when there was a major uproar to the Dutch public. This moment was compared to the Corona time, when the Prime Minister made the press conference and addressed the public. So the extent of that financial event in 1974 and the birth of the internet in 1974 is replicated back again in 2008 with the introduction of Bitcoin and the big financial crisis. The commonality between those two events is the communication. The internet changed the face of communication, and how are we conducting this interview today on a basically infrastructure that's called the TCP/IP. And in 2008, the communication of value over the internet is changing, and we are able to transact on a global scale, similar to how we are able to send a video message on a global scale. We are able to transact value on a global scale using the Bitcoin technology. So for countries like Venezuela, Lebanon, Syria, Zimbabwe, you don't have to rely anymore on your local devaluating currency, but you can opt for a system that brings a global perspective to the value that you have in your hand. Lebanon and Syria are a very special case, and usually people compare them to Venezuela and Zimbabwe, where I say, no, you cannot compare those two countries for one fact. Let's talk about Lebanon, for example. Lebanon is surrounded by sea, by Israel on the southern part of the country, and by Syria on the northern part and the eastern part of the country. So if you look at Lebanon's geography, it's basically locked between two countries that are in war, and by sea. So the people in this country, they are simply trapped, where in Venezuela, people had the chance to take their bags and leave the country and go to neighboring countries. This option, Lebanese people don't have it. They are trapped inside their own land. And not only that, they host more than 1 million refugees. They have one of the most corrupt countries, most of the corrupt governments around the world. And they are one of the largest diasporas compared to the citizens locally that they have. So in population, the Lebanese are around 4 to 5 million, while the diaspora, the Lebanese who are living outside Lebanon, are approximately 14 million. They are distributed between Australia, Canada, Europe, Africa. Germany hosts a large Lebanese community. So the way to transact in such circumstances, when your local currency is devaluating, when your local financial authority is saying you cannot have US dollar, we will not give you US dollar for your remittances, we will confiscate the money on your banks, we will peg the currency rate to something that does not match the market rate, then we have a problem. So if I send today money to my family using Western Union will not give my brother US dollar. The Western Union will give him Lebanese pound according to the rate that the central bank is saying. So when my brother takes that money and he goes to the supermarket shop owner is buying products from outside Lebanon. He is paying with US dollar for those products, and he is paying premium price for the US dollar. That means he is paying most probably a rate of 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 Lebanese pounds for $1, where my brother is receiving the value of the US dollar at a rate of 3,000 Lebanese pound for the US dollar. So there is a 50% difference between the value that my brother is receiving and the value and the purchase value of what my brother can do with that money. So what is the alternative here? The alternative is to not use that financial system at all that the government supports and the financial authority supports, and use something that is supported by the community, by the peers, because this is a peer-to-peer technology. So today what I do is I buy Bitcoin from the Netherlands from a exchange site like Satos, for example. It's not like I want to promote Satos, but I have been a client for them for the past 3 years. I do have an excellent service from them. It is really easy to use. I buy it from them and I send these coins to my brother in Lebanon. My brother exchanged these coins for Lebanese pound at a rate that the market decides and not the central bank decides. So now my brother has more Lebanese pounds in his hand, and he is able to purchase and put food on the table for my family. So this experience we are trying to replicate for as many Lebanese as we can that are living outside the Netherlands, or sorry, outside Lebanon, in the Netherlands, in Germany, in France, and telling them use Bitcoin as a way to bridge yourself with your families and send value from one country to another.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great that you support the community in that way, and that you can, yeah, that you can send money to another country without having problems with the central bank discussing how much it is worth or not.
Of course.
But if you would advise youngsters about this technology, what would you tell them to do for the coming 5 years? Would you advise them to dig into Bitcoin, or would you advise them to dig into blockchain, or what would you advise them?
Yeah, I'm happy that you asked this question, and allow me to not to sell something here, but to promote what I believe in and what I'm doing now, something that I call the Bitcoin score. And I have been an advocate of a statement that I first heard by Andreas Antonopoulos that says the best investment that you can make in Bitcoin is education and not speculation. And what does this mean? In my time as a refugee in Dutch refugee camps, what did I do? I studied Bitcoin. I learned about Bitcoin. I went, you know, as they say, I went down the rabbit hole. I'm not advising them to go down the rabbit hole, but my advice for them is to understand the history of money and to understand the future of money. And the future of money is similar to the future of communication in 1974. In 1974, the future of communication was the internet. In 2008, the future of money is Bitcoin. Between 1974 and 1990, there is little time, and we saw how slow the development of internet was, how difficult it is to use the internet in those basically span of 20 years. Today, we are 10 years only in this technology. There is a huge opportunity for the upcoming generation, for students, for everyone who is above the age of 13 to have financial freedom, to know and understand how money works. Because by the time they are 18, by the time they are 20, 21, and 24, they have 10 years of experience in that field. So invest in the education. And the best way to understand Bitcoin is simply to use it. You know, and this is what I bring in the program that I call the Bitcoin Score. So in the Bitcoin Score, I've designed a educational program for basically students above the age of 13, where we take them into the history of money, where we bring them into the future of money, and we explain to them what is Bitcoin about, away from the speculation of prices and currencies. At the end of that program, they will be having their own wallets with 20 euros of Bitcoin on that wallet. So we make sure that every person who comes in the Bitcoin Score leaves with a Bitcoin wallet with 20 euros worth of money on it. On top of that, they get a copy of my book, The Invisible Sun, and this is the second promotion I would like to do on Cryptotakkies today, because I do believe stories teach people a lesson. The only reason that human beings were able to go to space today is because we started sharing stories from the dawn of humanity until today. And stories teach us lessons, teach us lessons on survival, teach us lessons on improvement. And I wanted to share my story with the world because we are living in a times similar that I lived in the refugee camp. We are isolated. We're not allowed to leave our houses. Well, guess what? I was not allowed to leave the refugee camp. We are communicating on the internet today with our loved ones. Well, as a refugee, the only thing that I had on me was my internet and smartphone connection for communication. We are studying online. Guess what? I did my master's in digital currencies and blockchain technology online from the University of Nicosia. We are working and advocating for remote work. Well, again, guess what? I was in the refugee camp, working in the camp remotely on my device, on my smartphone and on my laptop. And finally, we are advocating today for a cashless society, for digital money. Well, guess what? I did use digital money when I was a refugee. So 5 years passed by, the experience that I lived as a refugee. Today, many people are experiencing again. And this is, you know, as they say, don't waste a good crisis. I did not sit doing nothing in the quarantine time. I finished my book, The Invisible Sun. And next week on Monday, it will be online on my website, Tey.Amsterdam, where people can start buying it on a pre-sale basis. And again, the purpose of releasing my story is to inspire and to teach people a lesson.
Well, yeah. I want to thank you for this interview. It was really inspiring, and I'm definitely sure that a lot of youngsters that will be watching this interview will be inspired after this, and I hope that they will all at least get to know how Bitcoin works, and that they will be curious about how the technology will impact their future. So yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, I hope to see and talk to you another time, maybe at the new event.
Hopefully, I hope so as well. I'm hearing a lot lately a new Dutch word, soepeling. So I hope this soepeling goes more and more supple, as they say, and that the government would allow us to meet in person again. and do these nice one-on-one interactions with the people. As a keynote speaker and as public speaker, I did miss the stage. I missed the energy of the crowd, and hopefully we are able to go back to these times, but definitely not go back to those old and traditional mentality of, you know, workers have to work in an office and not at home, that the school is the knowledge and information is only what you learn at school, at university. You know, taking this digital step, you know, it is enforced on us now. I wish it didn't happen in that way, but in looking at the positive side, looking at the other half of the cup, I'm really happy. And I say, I'm blessed that I'm in the Netherlands, that we are under such good hands, and that the leadership of the country has taken us away, far away in the crisis. And I'm really excited for what is coming in the future. Again, I want to thank you, Raoul, for having me on Cryptotakkies. I think this is what the community needs today. We don't need more startups. We don't need more, ICOs, and we don't need more STOs. We just need to understand what Bitcoin can do for us. And as you are focusing on the young generation, I share my respect, and I share my vision that the only way that we could move forward, whether in Syria, whether in Lebanon, or in the Netherlands, is by giving the youngsters the opportunity for change.
Yes, well, thank you. Once again, very inspiring and motivational.
Thank you, Raoul.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.